To 10x your faith, you have to understand some foundational truths first. The first thing to know is a universal definition of faith. And then I will give you a very practical, everyday example. Then the biblical definition of faith with a biblical example. These two definitions of faith, which are very similar, they will work 90% of the time that you come across faith in real world or in biblical scripture. We're going to start with Hebrews 11:1 today, because if it does not work on Hebrews 11:1 and it doesn't unlock what the substance and evidence of faith is very clearly, then we need to go looking for a different definition. Okay? And that's why I want to get you established in this very first video. So here's the definition of just regular, everyday old faith. Faith is believing in a truth or a promise from a reliable source and then taking the appropriate action. Everyday faith is believing in a truth or a promise from a reliable source and then taking the appropriate action. I go over to a friend's house and she said, "Hey, I bought you your favorite sodas today. They're in the refrigerator once you want them." So when it's time, I go to the refrigerator and I pick out my favorite soda. What is the substance that Ev is hoping for? Dr. Pepper. What is the evidence that this is indeed Dr. Pepper? The label on the outside of the can. This is the truth and the promise of a reliable source, the Dr. Pepper manufacturing company, right? My act of faith. Did I pray enough? Did I earn this? Nope. My friend paid for it. Did I have to talk to her for an hour before I could have one? Nope. And it's still a Dr. Pepper. You know how I know that? Because of the label. Because this is a reliable source. It was a Dr. Pepper when it came out of their manufacturing plant. It was a Dr. Pepper when it went into the can. It was a Dr. Pepper in the store, in the truck, the entire way to the store. It's a Dr. Pepper. It will always be a Dr. Pepper. It's just true. My act of faith, pop the can and drink it. Biblical faith. Biblical faith is believing in the truths and promises of God and His Word, and then taking the appropriate action. Believing in the truths and promises of God and taking the appropriate action is biblical faith. We have to start with Hebrews 11:1. Hebrews 11:1 says, "Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Let's go back to this example. What is the substance I'm hoping for? Dr. Pepper. What is the evidence that this is a Dr. Pepper? It is the truth and promise from a reliable source on the outside of the label. Our scripture today from Hebrews 11, let's just look at Noah, a couple stories down, okay, a couple scripture verses down. Noah was told by God there was going to be a flood. His act of faith was to believe that. God also showed him what this ark was going to look like. And as God brought the animals to him, he learned how to handle them and how to take care of them. Okay? You and I can only imagine what it looked like, and we have some people that have tried to build replicas or give us pictures of it. But Noah did not have that. Noah had to go chop the wood, drag it back to the house. Hopefully he had elephants early on, right? And large animals that could handle all of that. Then they had to get the tar. They had to do all this work to build it, and the nails and just everything about it. But he had to take the action. That was a big job. Took him a long time to do it too. When God told him, get into the ark, him and his family got into the ark. God shut the door. Nobody else could get in or out. When we look at the rest of the chapter of Hebrews 11, every single person listed in that chapter had either a truth or a promise that they were putting all of their faith in. And when you read those stories, you're going to see that. It was not their idea. It was not Joshua's idea to make it so that the sun stood still. It was not Samson's idea that he could do those miraculous things. They were not acting on presumption. They were not out of line with God and his word. They were acting in accordance with what they believed based on the truths and promises of God and his word. That's why I know that this is a solid biblical definition of faith that will unlock, again, 90% of biblical faith verses in the Bible. Now, the next one is quite the riddle, and we will go there next.